Our next speaker is Dr. Sue Wareham. She's a retired Canberra general practitioner and she's president of the Medical Association for the Prevention of War in Australia. She's also the regional vice president of the non-partisan International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. She was a founder of the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, known as ICAN, which was awarded the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize. She's also been awarded an Order of Australia Medal for her services to public health and peace. Welcome, Sue.
Well, one of the important things, and I think the first thing to remember in relation to Julian Assange and his health situation, is the fact that everybody has the right to the best available health care. And it doesn't matter if that person is being detained somewhere or not, they still have a right to the best available health care. Now, what we're seeing in the case of Julian Assange is that even though he's been detained in pretty awful circumstances, which have been described as causing him psychological torture, and those were the words of the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Professor Nils Melzer, he's been detained in this situation, and even with that background, he's still not being offered or having provided the healthcare that he needs to deal with some of the effects of the psychological torture that he's been subject to. And we know that psychological torture can have very severe impacts. It's not a mild form of torture by any means. It can have impacts on emotional functioning, of course, but also on cognitive functioning and things like memory, concentration, attention, matters of identity, and also in a person's capacity really just to think and to sort out problems and address issues. And we've seen some of this when Assange was before court in October for a case management hearing, and he was really struggling to even remember and state his own name and date of birth. So these things are extremely troubling. And the source of the torture, the psychological torture, as Professor Melzer has called it in Assange's case, is from at least a couple of things. He's been subjected to solitary confinement, social isolation with hardly any human contact, and this is a very damaging thing to do to any person. But he's also been denied what he needs to prepare his own defence. He's had limited access to his legal team, we understand, and has not been provided with the information that he needs even to prepare his own defence. So this is pretty unconscionable that we're just letting a man wait helplessly for what other governments, an Australian citizen, is waiting helplessly for what other governments decide to do with him. And this situation of arbitrariness and hostility has been going on for some time and has been commented on over years with a sense of alarm by UN representatives, by human rights advocates, medical doctors, and particularly over the past 12 months or so, 2019, Professor Nils Melzer has stated again with an increasing sense of alarm his concern about Julian Assange's health, to the extent that Melzer stated that Assange could in fact die in prison. And there have been other reports. Other people are speaking out about the fact that this is a medical emergency. Assange needs medical help and he's not receiving it in Belmarsh high security prison, and he needs to be moved to a situation where he can receive the high level of medical care that he needs. So this is what has motivated medical doctors around the country, around the world at least, and particularly in Australia, because Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. So it's the reason that we've written to the Foreign Minister, Maurice Payne, to Prime Minister Morrison and the shadows in those areas. And we're urging these people to take some action on behalf of Assange, who is an Australian citizen. We need the Australian government to intervene, as they have intervened in other similar situations where perhaps the politics has been different. But we want the Australian government to intervene and to ensure that Julian Assange at least receives the health care that is appropriate for his deteriorating situation and to which he has a right as a human being. But we want the Australian government to intervene on behalf of this Australian citizen, and we regard it as fairly unconscionable that that really hasn't happened thus far. The Australian government has been sitting on its hands and doing, as far as we can see, virtually nothing. We need this to change.